What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick.
I'm Jammin John.
And we have an album review for you, and one that I almost missed because I thought it came out next month, and then luckily we have awesome fans that remind us in the comments like, hey, were you guys going to cover this album? And like, yes, but I thought it was next month, and that was my bad. So we are going to go over the latest offering from Borknagar, Fall. This also comes out on the 23rd of February on Century Media Records. It's been formed in 1994 in Norway. This is their 12th album overall. I've been into this band since their album Empiricism. Pretty much it was right around the same time I was really getting into Enslaved, and I noticed that they shared a lot of members, but this band shares a lot of members with a lot of bands. The main guy behind this, Øystein Brun, he's pretty much started this project to explore more melodic, more progressive music outside of what he was usually doing, which was more black metal and death metal. And over the course of this band's existence, they have had members from a litany of bands. Dimmeborger, Ulver, Vintersorg, like the singer, he's been on a ton of their albums. Spiral Architect, Arcturus, Enslaved, Gorgoroth, Leprous. There's more that I didn't list just because it takes up a lot of space in the paper. Now, honestly, I haven't picked up a Borknagar album since their album Erd, which I thought was really good. It was the last one with Vintersorg on vocals, but for some odd reason, I missed the last two, which I heard were really good. And I really believe that now after listening to this one, because, once again, this band is just flat out amazing at being epic, proggy, catchier than hell, and still very heavy and, very rooted in black metal still in a way. Like, there's a lot of folk and, like, kind of Viking metal-esque stuff on here. But, man, the main thing on here is this band's gift for melody and hooks is unreal.
Now, imagine with me, if you will, I have missed the last 11 Borknagar records. As you know, due to my past aversion to black metal, I skipped a whole genre of music. And so, knowing that Borknagar was a black metal band, I was like, man. And I did myself a disservice yet again as I continue to get into black metal and appreciate more of this whole thing of music. I am glad that I listened to this record. So now, having heard Borknagar, I need to listen to 11 other albums. So to get right into it, first off, mixed by Jens Bagren, mastered by Tony Lindgren, So, that's kind of where we're at as far as sound is concerned. What immediately grabbed me, though, for this album was, again, not necessarily what I thought would grab me, because again, knowing nothing about this band and knowing that they were black metal, I sat down and I was like, all right, here comes some riffs. The thing that first grabbed me was not only the gigantic, lush atmosphere, and when I mean gigantic, lush atmosphere, we're talking like epic, like standing in a field while the band plays and there's speakers everywhere and you're just like, holy shit. What grabbed me, though, immediately was the clean vocals. There are such beautiful, clean vocals and harmonies throughout this album, and I did not see that coming.
I was actually a little surprised. They've definitely had clean vocals in the past. They've had clean vocals throughout their entire discography, but there's generally more of a balance, like the harsh vocals to the clean vocals. And this one, I would say, is way more dominated by clean vocals, and that is not a complaint whatsoever. No. Now, the clean vocals are handled by keyboardist Lars Nedlund. He's been there for a while, as well as ICS Vortex, formerly of Dimmeborger. And, if you're familiar with his time in Dimmeborger, when he chose to step behind the mic and belt out some, clean vocals, he's got a massive voice. So you have great harmonies between the two, plus ICS does all the harsh vocals on here, I believe. And the vocal dynamics on here almost steal the show completely. If it wasn't for all the other amazing stuff on here, they probably would. But this album is just chock full of amazing, evocative, emotional music, but it's still very heady and cerebral in terms of like the song construction, the layers, the intricacies, and interplay of the guitars, but also like the counter points between the two. And then you have these amazing synths right away. Like the opening track, Summits, he comes in with a jump scare. Like I kind of throttled back.
I was waiting for the THX movie.
It's like this giant sci-fi burp that just hits you in the face, and you're like, whoa. And then as the song goes on, it's like, man, like every transition is very epic and very lush. And then it comes in with, good solid black metal riffs and, kind of a colder sort of vibe. And then these big vocal harmonies just take over. And man, can these guys write hooks. And not just like, it's a good metal hook. Like, there's like solid old school prog rock hooks and flat out rock hooks. Like, there's a lot of stuff in here that made me think of bands like, yes, Gentle Giant, Rush.
Yep.
I wasn't necessarily expecting that. I know that's been a part of their acumen in terms of like what they've injected into, Borknagar's sound over the years. That, having members of, Enslaved come in there, namely Ivar. He's a big old school prog head too. Yeah. But man, vocally it just hits perfectly.
Well, and so the next thing that grabbed me, you've heard us mention stuff like Yes and Rush and whatnot, was the overwhelming amount of prog that this album is. Like, in talking to Nick and learning a little bit more before I came down here and yelled at you all, in talking to Nick, I learned that Borknagar had some more prog elements anyway. But this record in particular is just full of prog. Like, I wrote down proggy moments for Summits, thinking that maybe it was just a fluke, and I was like, that was really cool. No, it continues out throughout the entire album. I would state that they spend more time doing proggy jams than they do actually being heavy.
Yeah, I think that's actually fair. Like, I mean, when it's heavy, it's a very particular kind of heavy. Like, occasionally this flirts with more somber, melancholy atmosphere. Afar and Stars Ablaze kind of open up with like kind of that gothic dreariness. You get like clean melodies, but they're very, dreary and forlorn, and these kind of soundscape synths on top of it. Like, this album's atmosphere is just amazing. But when it comes down to the riffs, there is a brightness, there's an epicness, there's a lot of ascending riffs and melodies. Like, you don't get a lot of the downtrodden vibe, and even when it does get harsher and more dark and sinister with the harsher vocals on here, which are used kind of sparingly. Little intermittently, the clean vocals kind of just yank you right out of the darkness. Like, look at the sun, it's nice out, quit being a mopey dickhead. It has that vibe. A lot of this, I don't know, like, it kind of just made me feel like, I feel good. I feel kind of happy. Did this album fuck up?
Right. Like, you ever been to an outdoor festival on like a pretty day and you're just like, this is nice.
Yeah.
Iced tea? Like, okay, cool. Yeah, especially the song The Wild Lingers. That song is amazing. Giant epic choruses. It's got a really cool, like, swingy, jazzy groove in it. But just when they get to those big choruses, soaring, epic vocals. Just like, wow.
Yeah, the dynamics on here can almost be like canyons apart. Like, that song in particular, instant Pink Floyd vibes.
Yeah.
Like, very Animals-esque. It's kind of, smoky, bluesy, dive bar sort of vibe. There's a really cool kind of like David Gilmour-esque lead on there. I absolutely love it. But between the verses and that chorus, like, it's going from pitch black to like the sun is out, there are birds chirping. And I don't know, I really like that about this. Like, even in its more intense moments, like, Afar has some, like, ferocious machine gun guitars.
Yes, it does.
And they're also driven by these stomping drums. Like, these things are just, like, kind of that faster bolt thrower groove. Like, yeah, let's go.
Faster double time groove, and just, like, you're like, yeah.
But on top of that, you have these lush guitar harmonies and the synth interplay with the guitars. And then, of course, these giant vocals. And, man, these guys can write, like, almost like a flat-out rock chorus hook. Like the song Nordic Anthem, which is a very moody, kind of dark piece. Like, you get tribal percussion. It's very light-sounding at first.
It's very much a Nordic anthem. Like,
it is, like, it feels like halfway between, like a rallying battle cry to get the troops going, or a lamentation for, everything that's already happened. Like, I feel like it's somewhere in there. But, man, when that chorus hits, it's absolutely gigantic. Like, that's a hook that you could play almost anyone that just appreciates music and melody.
Yeah.
And they would probably dig it.
Yeah.
And then as soon as they heard the harsh vocals, like, not those.
Yeah, this record is very, very listenable, I think, to even people that aren't into extreme music. Like, dude, like, my mom hates metal. I get it. I was raised in a religious home, so I get it. She hates metal. But my mom likes things like Primus and Mastodon in their cooler moments, you know? And I feel like songs like The Wild Lingers or Moon or even Stars Ablaze are a track I could throw on for my mom and she'd be like, this is all right.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you're into, like, progressive rock, too, like, you're going to recognize a lot of tropes in the song structure, too. Like, frequent transitions to softer bridges and then, you know, instrumental build-ups. And, again, the vocal hooks on here, and I think it's ICS Vortex in particular, when he sings... he sounds like John Anderson a little bit. And I think I even said that before, you know, describing the whole bridge to, like, Progenies The Great Apocalypse. On the album Death Cult Armageddon, that bridge is absolutely awesome, and that whole song's kind of like Satan pimp strutting his way into a room. But, yeah, like, there's this classic hook to it. And there's enough softer moments on here to kind of space out from the heavier moments. And, you know, again, it's not always harsh vocals driving those heavy moments. It's driven by riffs and melodies and hooks. And it's that constant ebb and flow and those peaks and valleys that always kind of lock me in, especially in the longer, more proggy numbers on here, like, you know, Afar, Stars Ablaze, the last track, Northward, which is almost 10 minutes of just insanely awesome music.
That's an awesome song. From beginning to end, no matter what that song does, it's awesome. Every moment is epic. Every time they switch into a transition, whether it be soft or just vocals or just melody, like, it's gigantic and it's awesome, and it's awesome.
But even like the shorter songs, like Nordic Anthem is one of the shorter songs. It's a little bit over 5 minutes, but it is locked in your head with a giant hook on that chorus. Same thing with Unraveling, which has some of the best vocal dynamics on the album, I would say.
Well, it's slow and moody when it starts, and it emotional.
Yeah, you go from, like, somber and reflective to more intense, but it's kind of like a heavy rock intense. A lot of it kind of reminds me of Enslaved, but it's like Enslaved and Rush worked together to write a single. Like, this kind of has, like, a Rush single vibe, but it's a little bit harsher and heavier. It's still got some good syncopated, heavy riffs in there, but it is very much driven by the vocals and the interplay between the harsh and clean vocals.
Yeah, towards the end, dude, that's a really cool thing, because it does get notably heavier at the end, but it's got the cleans to kind of still mellow it out and kind of draw you back a little bit. Like, yeah, we're going to get heavy, and yeah, it's a little dark, but just kidding. And not to downplay the heavier moments on this record, because there definitely are some heavier, chuggy, just downright mean moments on this album. The song Stars Ablaze, actually, I would call notably more black metal anyway. It has a ton of moments in it in which there's harsher vocals or double time grooves on the drums, or even straight up like triplet chugs.
Blasts.
Yep, blasts. And then the song Unraveling has this super cool, catchy, like off-time groove in the verses that's really neat. Or the last epic track, Northward, which just has a ton of, again, awesome moments.
Everything. It has everything.
Yeah, so there still are heavy moments, but that, for me at least, wasn't necessarily what stood out to me.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been, like, just drawn in by this band's songwriting. I think they're just excellent at it, especially in terms of, like, their layering, like, constantly, like, multi-track guitars, those lush synths sound amazing. I love the synth work on here. It works both as, like, an atmosphere in the background or, like, you know, adding, like, piano melodies. There's even violins on here that show up and add a lot of, like, extra textures and vibes. This whole album is awesome at that, but the thing that I absolutely love in here are the giant proggy songs. And Northward, yeah, that closer is absolutely epic. It pretty much has everything that this album has in its entirety, just condensed into a 10-minute amazing song with some of the best transitions on the album. I like the fact that throughout most of this, the intensity can be maintained really well, and when they do their transitions and kind of bring in those softer moments, there's still that, like, emotional kind of, like, drive behind it. I will say that, you know, there are some songs where I think some of the transitions are a little bit too sharp. Afar and Moon are both excellent songs, but there are a couple moments on there where I feel like they kind of shift out of patterns and then kind of go right back. The song Moon in particular, it opens up with, again, that very somber, almost kind of like Paradise Lost, My Dying Bride sort of vibe, a little bit faster, maybe slightly less depressing, but it goes into this shreddy break after a vocal bit, which I think is, you know, pretty cool. And I figured that was like the next big transition to the next mode of the song. And then it kind of drops out and goes back into the vocals again. It was it feels like it was just kind of squeezed in there.
I mean, it was cool, but they abandoned it too quickly. And to abandon from something harsh and rocking like that back to immediately, without warning, stop on a dime, back to like a groovy thing. Like, I mean, it's cool, but it kind of killed the momentum of that song, like where it was.
Yeah, it felt like, just a moment to squeeze in a shreddy solo for a second. And again, like solos are kind of minimal on here. Like a lot of the most impressive guitar parts in here is just like the intricacy of the riffs, the songwriting, and the amazing guitar harmonies that are all over here. Leads, you hear them every now and then, and they're generally really good, but they're very like sparse on the album. Kind of almost like the harsh vocals on here. I just feel like that moment was just like, like something that just felt a little shoehorned on there. And the same thing with Afar. Like, Afar has some moments that I feel like they just transition a little too quickly. Like, this band just has so much epic in them, they have to squeeze in more epic into already epic songs. Like, if this album was any more epic, it would show up at my doorstep dressed in, like, Lord of the Rings armor, riding a winged steed that breathes fire. Which I might call the cops. I don't know. I don't know how to react to that.
Please order this album. I want to be here on the day it shows up.
They wouldn't let me ride the horse.
Bastards. I actually really can't think of anything I didn't like beyond what he said. And even what he said, it doesn't really harm anything.
I'm nitpicking.
Yeah, it's always rough when we review really good records because we have to nitpick.
There has to be something wrong with it.
Right. There, it can't be perfect, right? This record is pretty goddamn close. I'm going to actually go ahead and give this 4.5 stars. This record is amazing. It is epic on so many levels. The atmosphere is awesome. And normally I bitch about synths in black metal, but like the tones they picked are just perfect. Like it just makes everything feel kind of warm and fuzzy, which is weird because it should be cold and dark. But like listening to this record, it's like that scene in Roger Rabbit when they finally bust into Toontown and the sun is out. Like it's not quite that, magical, but it's so bright and big and triumphant and epic and catchy and memorable and jammy and groovy and proggy, and the vocals are killer on all accords. The vocal harmonies are just amazing. Like, I would listen to this record over and over again, and I'm probably going to. And I'm probably actually going to show it to people that don't like metal just to see what happens. Yeah, no complaints. 4.5 stars. There you go.
I am at 4.5 stars as well. Like, vocally, this might be one of the catchiest albums I've listened to this year, flat out. I have such a love of old school, like 70s prog. Like, I love classic Yes. And again, I think it's ICS Vortex. He kind of sounds like, an extra epic black metal John Anderson. And I love it. But man, what I love in here is just the incredible songwriting. Mm-hmm. Like, these guys have such a strong sense of melody, but also in terms of like pacing, dynamics. Mm-hmm. Every one of these songs is catchier than hell. And I really had to nitpick to find just the most minor things that I didn't like. And yeah, no, I didn't like it, in terms of those minor things, but it in no way really severely impacts this album. Mm-hmm. This is just amazing songwriting that, kind of goes everywhere. There's like big rock hooks on here too. Like the chorus on Nordic Anthem, dude, like that almost sounds like something that could have popped up in a Toto song.
Yep.
Just, heavier. Black metal generally is supposed to be a little bit more dark, but I found so much brightness and warmth in this. Mm-hmm. Like, there's just such a rousing vibe to this. Like, you want to do stuff after listening to this. Like, I feel inspired. This is absolutely fantastic. In terms of like what else to listen to that's like this, I mean, Enslaved is the first thing that comes to mind. Even Opeth in spots, I would say. Maybe like Persephone. It kind of, that epic vibe too. I don't know. Borknagar's kind of had their own thing, and it's always been constantly evolving. And man, I need to go back and listen to the two that I missed. because I feel, kind of like a dick now for not listening to them because they were probably really good.
Well, you feel like a dick. I need to go back and listen to 11 albums.
Good point. You're a bigger dick.
I'll take the bigger dick card.
You know what? I'm going to edit out the part where you said card. So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there, there's a link down below to thrallsmetal.com. Our Patreon link is there. It is also on our channel on the banner on the bottom right-hand corner. But if you're looking for Thralls Metal stuff, you have to go to thrallsmetal.com. We have t-shirts, we have new ones, and we have old ones that are discounted, provided we have your size, and we even have some hats there. So if you're looking for any of that stuff, click the link down below.
Tons of stuff going on at Thralls of Metal. Album reviews, collection updates, States of Metal, What's John Jammin will come back soon. We've actually been talking to several people here as of recently about doing some more cool segments with some awesome guest stars. That's going to happen. I'm not sure when, but that's going to happen. Tons of stuff going on. We always try to find something new to keep you guys entertained, and for some reason you guys keep showing up and supporting us. And we thank you for that.
Yeah, you guys all roll. It's been amazing doing this. Black Dahlia Murder Ranking coming soon. It is shot, it is edited, and it was a lot of fun to do.
Yes.
But yeah, also a bunch of other stuff. But one more big thank you, because you guys are awesome, and we will catch you later.